I'll go to Ram. Ram, morning ambassador was telling Australia's position as well as contribution and collaboration with NASA and so many advanced nations. Still, I feel that there is a lot of potential in Australia where you can look for some either collaborations or cooperations or some kind of joint venture, something like that. What is your perspective probably, how you look at enhancing or improving your startup ecosystem or industry ecosystem in collaborating with the Indian industry ecosystem?
Thanks, Mr. Sudhir. Firstly, the state that I come from is Western Australia. And Western Australia is, just to give you a bit of context, is 1/3 of Australia. So I have to speak from a Western Australian context, and that's where we are based. Space Angel is based out of Western Australia. And WA as a state is the only state that shares the Indian Ocean. So we are the closest state to you in terms of an ally. But however, Perth is very interesting because it's a very isolated city in the world. So we have not much choice in terms of resources. So therefore, and our population is about 4 million people in the entire state. It's a large state, just 4 million people. So we tend to be very entrepreneurial because whether good times or bad times, we have to deal with it ourselves. So hence the creation of leaders comes from, a lot of leaders come from Western Australian perspective and also general Australian perspective. In fact, our Australian Space Agency lead is from Western Australia as well. But having said that, our state has about $380 billion plus economy itself, just the state alone. And it's the engine for growth in Australia. So despite being the #1 mining and investment destination, the state government has a huge focus on diversifying the mining economy, or including oil and gas as well, to the space economy. And it's a key sector of focus and heavily supported by the Western Australian government. So the industry has been built diligently on real challenges for more than 60 years. This is not new. Why? Because it's southern hemisphere location, strategic longitude position, dry conditions, one of the 3 radio quiet zones in the world, and also clear skies for us. So there, it's very supportive. In WA, there's a very supportive ecosystem and supply chain. So supply chain wise, we're much closer to India itself. So that's a very key consideration. Now, in terms of opportunity and access to funds, there are a lot of access to funds through grants and also joint ventures. And there are a couple of things which are already taking place, including us working with the Indian space ecosystem. And we have been working with the ecosystem for more than a year now. And that's already sort of starting to fruit in a lot of ways and so on. So there's a lot of huge opportunity to collaborate around research, talent development. So I've just said we don't have enough people in WA or in Australia in general. I think currently the numbers are, we have 400,000 people short at the moment. That's in general, but the space sector has an angle as well. Now, Space Angel has been working with the Indian space ecosystem. We've already signed a few MOUs in addition to today's MOU. So we've signed MOUs prior to this with Skyroot and so on. And our vision in Space Angel is to future-proof human well-being through democratization of access to space by building a digital space port of the future in Western Australia. And that's our personal focus. But in fact, in addition to today's 6 MOUs that's been signed, 2 were signed from us previously. So altogether, it's more than half MOUs from Western Australia itself. Okay? So that's essentially the rigor that we are talking about. And in terms of challenges now, I said that the resource challenges that we've always had, but what drove that to, in terms of solving our problems is to have no choice but to build world-leading autonomous technologies. Now, such as autonomous trains, autonomous buses, autonomous trucks, and soon we are looking at autonomous ships as well. So these are the technologies that we enable, and including comms technologies such as 5G and satellite comms as well. So look, in context, we have local offices here, and I say we, and we are already working in a public-private partnership with the Australian government, and hopefully soon with the Indian side of things as well, and we are already starting to see that. In regards to the partnerships, we have headquarters here from a government perspective in Chennai. Mrs. Chaudhary is there actually. She's our Trade Commissioner for India Gulf. So as you can see, they are very supportive and they're here to support us. And I encourage any Indian space companies from here to liaise and engage with our Western Australian or Australian delegates who are here and from the government and so on. Now look, as a parting note, Space Angel together with the WA and federal government will be definitely building a space industry in Australia, that's for sure, and build the economy not only from Australians' perspective but also Western Australian perspective. But if India really wants to go to Mars, we can provide you a pseudo environment in Western Australia. It's similar to Mars. That's my parting note. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a good idea for our scientists, probably for international cooperation. Thank you, Ram. I'll go to Venkat now. Venkat, there was a notion, probably I think I prove that should be wrong. They say that for space startups, or in fact the startups per se, Indian investors would not invest more than 20 million. First is, I just seek your intervention whether it is true or not. The second thing is, especially in the space, having noted that there is a risky and high-tech challenges, resource constraint, so many other things. How a venture capital looks a startup, space startup? What features that you see for collaborating or for investing in a space startup?
Sure. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Venkat Vallabhaneni. I run a venture capital fund called Inflexor. We took an early bet. This is our second fund. We took an early bet in Bellatrix, in the fund one, 4 years ago, and we continue to take interest in Bellatrix. And we are very, very bullish and encouraged by what they do. If you haven't seen let me do some marketing. Go and visit their booth, and you'll see what they're doing. And as far as venture capital ecosystem is concerned, there's a bit of a feeling that venture capitalists are not taking enough risk in India. And please keep in mind, we see ecosystem is evolving along with Indian economy, along with space industry in India as well, right? If you look at so much activity that happens in ecosystem, so far large venture capital companies bet on e-commerce, consumer tech and other things as well. Only because that's a middle class, growing middle class. It's a safer bet. But there are companies like us, venture capital companies like us. We focus on deep tech. We know it takes long gestation period. And it takes a lot of capital as well. But we got to start somewhere. We as venture capitals not only provide capital, we also work with the companies in terms of operations and also finding capital for them as well. So, as far as the space is concerned, it is a bit different from the deep tech in India. As far as deep tech in India is concerned, we look at the technologies that are commercially viable. Give an example, Web3 is becoming viable today. Quantum computing is not, right? But when it comes to space, I think we can take early bet on because of the ecosystem, government, encouragement, and ISRO, and there's so many things happening. So we took early bet in space. I think gestation period is known, and it is a risky bet. But given where we are today in India, and given the size of, the space industry itself, whether it's $1 trillion, $3 trillion, where we are is 400 billion. So it doesn't matter. I think we have a lot of space. India for global is the key. I think the Indian ecosystem will provide services or the products for the global space industry. That's what we should focus on. That's what government should help the companies to achieve, and we are on the right path. So we're very, very bullish on that aspect, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. You have proved me wrong. I am very happy.
No, absolutely. We are very, very bullish.
No,
I mean,
thing is, if somebody, you people have supported Ballectris kind of successful startups, I am very happy. I wanted to listen other venture capitalists through your mouth. That is
sure,
the
sir.
intention.
One thing I would say is, right, upstream and downstream, people talked about it. You know, there's a lot of noise on the upstream, but we are keenly watching downstream as well, right? So we need to look for companies. There are a few companies out there, but there will be more, in my view, as we move forward. Yeah?
Yes, this message has to go, especially when we, fortunately tomorrow we have an investor meet where a couple of startups are making a pitch presentation and a couple of investors are coming. This kind of message, because one good thing everybody looks at it is, because when I went to a very international fora, when they say something, we want ISRO to be on the backside so that we'll get confidence. Today that assurance is there for all the startups that as a big brother, ISRO is behind you. You don't worry. You can come and use our facilities. So that kind of probably support when we extend, the venture capitalists also probably come forward with a positive note.
Sure, sir. We do anywhere between 500K to 5 million based on the stage of the company. So if you have any good ideas, please do approach us. Right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Having listened, I have not, I'm sorry, Dr. Vinod, I kept waiting because very enthusiastically he was waiting for what question he will come. Okay, having listened to all these things, Goenka sir is there with his blessings. What kind of ecosystem probably we can propose having listened? That's what I wanted you to wait to listen to all the people. What kind of thought process, what we have, what InSpace has got, and what kind of, let us say, we can get to know what the proposals on the board, probably in the thinking process. If you tell, probably audience will be more happy.
Thank you, Sudhir sir. It's very nice to be in this panel, and the title is also good. And I have very good esteemed panelists. I'll tell you that after inauguration of InSpace on 10th of June by Honorable Prime Minister, even before that we have started working on this. And see, the major achievement is within 2 months, we have brought a platform that is InSpace digital platform. This will have all the 4 verticals on which InSpace is working. So in this, these verticals are enabler, where we will try to connect the investors to the private investors or venture capitalist funds. We will take them on board for foreign FDI purpose, providing the facility to them. So enabler is the one role. Promoter anyway, it is the one role which they part of InSpace digital platform. The third role is after enabler it comes the authorization. So this InSpace digital platform has the facility where any startup, academia as well as space industry can log in online and they can submit their proposal. They need not to post even. So automatically they will get the update status as well as the SMS as which stage your proposal is going. So this is the third vertical, and fourth vertical is supervisor. So in that sense, InSpace will help the startups to supervise wherever they get difficulties. I will be very happy to tell you that we have the expert database, which is the job of the government to provide the experts. We have a list of 400 plus experts, and shortly we are going to enable that facility on the InSpace where they can register and tell their expertise area. Even experts can log in there and give us information about them. That also we are enabling in this IDP too. So I request all of you, I know 100 plus startups, academia has already registered to our unique digital platform I will call. And we request all of you to please visit that, and you will get many more. There are the opportunities, upcoming opportunities we will be displaying on that. So that is the work, and I see really enthusiasm from the people here. See, government is working. The government work is enabler. You see today 6 MOUs are signed, and practically the manufacturing of PSLV is transferred to the private industry. So that's a very good step, and when people get confidence that ISRO is behind, means we have a deep tech with us. So certainly it is going to be very fruitful. So what I sensed today was this, that Skyroot got $51 million investment. So I remember 1970, 5th April 1970, Orbital Science Corporation has launched fully privately developed launch vehicle, that is Pegasus. I remember that, which is going to happen shortly in India. That's my thoughts on this. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot for sharing a very good information. Even we do not know. Probably, I think you are in the framework. I think I have to see the website there. It is a very comprehensive website. Anybody can go and log in and submit the let us say application, and they can even some provision would be there even to follow up also. And one good thing what you have mentioned is the mentorship. Today we have very pool of ISRO employees spread across the country, and probably I think they may not be knowing. Couple of people they asked me also how to bet. Probably I think I'll take your clue and pull them rather than requesting them, because their knowledge is a very treasure. I'll just go back again to Sanjay. What, let us say, for the present generation, and the policies and frameworks are in. Even the government side, we are also struggling to make the system as comfortable as possible. Today, in the current scenario, what kind of supportive mechanism that we expect from the government other than the funding and policies? Because they're all being talked about.
Sir, I think, so let's go back to what, during the inauguration, what Chairman was speaking, and, what Pawan Goenka was saying. I think there's a need where, India can contribute, India will contribute to the global space ecosystem. And I think the enablers are already in place. But I think, in terms of enablers, we have capital, we have access to talent, we have the policies coming up. So all these are work in progress, right? I think once these things start moving at an accelerated pace, I think the ecosystem in itself will become self-sufficient. Government is the customer. Private companies have the ecosystem in itself serving each other, and together we can serve the global market.
Good. Srinath, what is your quick reaction?
So I think all of the wish lists we had when we started in 2017 was actually, it looked like it's going to be closed by the setting up of InSpace, sir. So everything starting from, educating people about what is possible in the sector to having a, framework where you can do private missions in the country. I think all of those are automatically being addressed there. So in that sense, I don't have a new wish list or anything for the government. I think one of the third point I wanted to mention, even from your previous question, I think InSpace solved a lot of the problems for us in that sense, because just having the government come out and say there is an entity like this to enable people like you actually answered literally hundreds of questions from investors and customers. So I think we are on the right direction there.
Good, good. I think thanks a lot for the good compliments, especially because we want to listen to you both. You are more prominent. I'll go to Chintanji. Chintanji, this because one thing is what you talked about, what you have done for Anika Rice, etc., etc. Let us say forthcoming. Let us say Miti is there, different programs are there. Again, come back to that one. What could have, let us say, beyond what is the expectations of the startups on seed funding, such kind of things? What on a bigger scale, like collaborations, like let us say some kind of clusters, in that way, what kind of thinking process should start from government side also to proactively attract the startups rather than they approaching us? We should like a magnet, no, like attracting the bodies. What should have been the system to attract the startups?
So I think I want to first say that I think you referred to the idea of thinking big, and I think we need a lot more of that for sure, because I mean, if you look at our current numbers, 75,000 startups, there's a lot to celebrate, of course, but that's 75,000 for 130 crore people. That's about one startup for 19,000 citizens, roughly. If you go to nations like Israel, France, Germany, etc., they have one startup for 2,000 to 3,000 citizens. So that's the gap we're talking about. You think about it differently. ISRO and space is, of course, the classic deep tech, right? I mean, our confidence in space as a sector is because we got the science in our favor, we know how to do it, all of that. But if you look at the deep tech investments, if you take the top 100 deep tech companies today in the world, an average investment they attract is about $75 million. That's annual budget of Atal Innovation Mission. Think about it. That's the gap we're talking about, right? I think when to attract startups, to attract startups, I think we'll have to put up programs that are much larger than what we have. We'll have to attract investment that's much greater than where we are. And the third piece, which is sort of somewhat intangible, is the cultural piece, where many, many more young people have to believe in themselves, that they can do it. I think then it'll happen, is my sense.
Really added a new dimension for it. Probably I think time is given is approaching or rather crash. Probably I will seek couple of questions from the audience if you have, because that is the order of the day. Or shall I seek first Goenka's let us say view on this panel, or you have, because even people are there, would you like to just put a question to us, sir? Can somebody give mic to sir?
Well, Srinath made me very happy by saying that in-space formation has solved most of their problems. So we'll have to now live up to that expectation of the industry. I was very keenly listening to this IDEX platform that you talked about, Chintan, and how it can come into space. Can you throw some more light on what we could do in the space industry to bring something similar to IDEX?
Can I invite Vish to talk about it? Because he was really looking at the nuts and bolts of building IDEX.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Chintan. So I believe if you look at it, like I said, space has certain unique characteristics, right? And in fact, Sudhirji and I have discussed this to no end, saying, in defense you have defense production. Right? So what that does is it creates a direct procurement channel, right? Now space, ISRO is self-sufficient in terms of what it needs to procure for its, let's say, infrastructure needs or payloads or the hardware parts of it. But if you look at the application space, right, in terms of how much the assets can be monetized, right, that is looking like a huge opportunity out there, right? So if we can just run innovation challenges, throwing open, themes on how space data, can be leveraged, whether it's agriculture, whether it's remote sensing, whether it's navigation, the opportunity is huge, right? So we could really look at a model where, it can be an open innovation kind of a program. It could be a corporate accelerator kind of a model. It could even be a corporate ventures kind of a model, right? So that's one possibility. The other possibility, and I see a lot of it going literally a begging, is the amount of technical project services procurement that, let's say, ISRO does or DRDO does, right? Can all of that, or at least some of that, be converted from procuring technical services to procurement of products, right? And I just want to go back in time, let's say 40, 50 years, or I don't know, maybe 50 years ago when we started bank computerization, IT computerization, railways computerization, it seeded India's IT sector. But what it actually seeded was India's IT services sector. Now, if we don't stop buying services, we will not start making products. So I believe the huge opportunity in space, in DRDO, is to actually move away from looking at startups as providers of technical services, or even MSMEs as providers of technical services, to actually, product innovators and product, manufacturers or product suppliers, right? I think in that lies a large transformation that we can take up. And maybe if we do that, a lot of the shortfall that we talk about in terms of venture funding can actually go away because we'll have revenue-backed enterprises that are becoming profitable, and maybe some of them can really, even scale up non-linearly, right? And in fact, a lot of, Silicon Valley got built out of bigger companies putting money into smaller companies, not as venture investments, but actually as balance sheet investments, right? So I think a lot of venture industrialization can happen before venture capital can also fall into some of these sectors. So I think in some open innovation, bringing startups, converting a lot of the development work to procurement outcomes, and having a lot more trust on startups to deliver products, not just projects. I think that could materially scale what we're trying to attempt. So, yeah, thank you.
Can I add one thought to this? So there were two other sort of arguments that envelope this articulation also to me. See, in IDEX, two things happened. One is we were recently doing cost-benefit analysis of Atal Innovation Mission itself, as well as of IDEX. And if you take the amount of money invested so far in Atal versus even direct tangible returns, then that ratio is currently 1:5, 1:6. So there's 6 times returns from Atal Innovation Mission. If you take the social cost of capital, those returns go to about 17 times. If you do the same thing for IDEX, because a lot of infrastructure was already built and the overall costs went down, their returns in terms of the amount of money their startups have raised and their valuations and so on is greater than 50 times.
Let's not say that loudly, Dr. Chintan. I would still like more money to flow into IDEX. I know, I'm just kidding.
But so that's the case for doing this again in other industries. But I think the second point which Vish made was that I think the architecture, see, the processes and people and a lot of those nitty-gritties we figured out in IDEX, so we've gone up the learning curve. But the architecture for space equivalent of IDEX is going to be totally different because of the open domain nature of it. So I think we have to, in that sense, build it from that perspective.